show you, which I know I showed last week, is how to format your system's date. Okay, so in order to do that, right, you could use two formulas. I can write equals now, right, which is one of the formulas that's going to give me date and time, okay, or I can write equals today. And what equals today gives me is just today's date, all right? And this is something I want you guys to get into the habit of doing, because whenever you work in a spreadsheet, you want to make sure you supply the date and time for that spreadsheet, so that way when someone wants to know who worked on the spreadsheet last, you'll have the date and time that you last work on it, and it'll be on your desktop or wherever, so you'll have that as proof to really basically be able to prove that you were the one that worked on it, and if any changes were made, that it did not happen on your time. Okay, so let's take a look at, quickly go through some of the formulas that you had to do for your first lab. So for your first lab, you had to use total. Okay, you had to use average. All right, you had to use max, and I think you had to use min. I don't really remember. Okay, so whenever you do formulas in Excel for me, one of the things I want you to get into the habit of doing is basically making sure that your formulas align, right? Some of you, when you did the lab, did not get the formulas to align properly. So what I mean by that, which I will show you, is so if I don't want to have all these decimals there, I can actually just go to my ribbon, and I can go where the decimal places are, and I can decrease the decimal to the amount of decimals that I'm looking for, okay? So I want you guys to get into the habit of aligning your formulas like this, because some people did not do that. And what I mean by that is basically the following. So here I have min, right? And I have max right underneath each other. And some people for their lab had, let's say instead of having average here, right, they would have basically put average in this side, and they would have brought the average section over here, right? So even though that is accurate, I want you to get into the habit of really utilizing and having all your formulas be consistent and easy to find, where I don't have to really try to have to guess what it is that you're doing inside of that spreadsheet, so to speak, okay? So let's learn a few new things now, okay? So let's talk about absolute and relative cell reference, all right? So in order to do that, I'm basically going to do the following, okay? So I'm going to write all-star. So I'm going to write this all-star team here that I'm going to create, and let's say this all-star team is that good, okay? They have a perfect record, okay? So if I do equals average, okay, that all-star teams, okay, well, let's actually sum it all up, okay? So if I do equal sum, okay, and I add them all up, right, they'll have 700, so that would be their total, right? If I did average here, the all-star team's average, right, by default should be 100%. So let's take a look. So if I do equals average, right, and I average out their thing, it should be 100%. And this looks very, okay. Well, let's actually do this. Let's do equals 700 divided by 700, 100%. Okay, so it looks like they have 100%, right? So it makes sense if you win 100% of your games, or 100 in September, your average should be 100%, okay? Let's see what happens when we do the same thing for Celtics, Cavaliers, San Antonio, Golden State, Orlando Magic, etc., right? And the reason that I kind of did them this way is so you guys can really wrap your head around exactly what it is I want you to understand, right? So if you look at Celtics, it's very clear that they only won 80% of their game. So if I run my formula correctly, 560 divided by 700 should be 80%. So let's take a look, right? So I'm going to write equals. I'm going to do 560 divided by 700, right? Rightfully so, I get 80%, which makes a lot of sense. Is this clear to everyone so far? Is what I'm saying making sense? Yes, no? Does anyone have any questions? All right, perfect. If I'm moving too fast, just let me know, okay? And I'll gladly slow down. But let's watch what happens when I try to get the percentage for Cavaliers, San Antonio, Golden State, Orlando, etc. It's very clear. Celtics won 80% of their game. Their total is 560. They've averaged 80% of wins throughout the season. San Antonio, 87, right? Golden State, 95. But let's watch what happens when I fill handle all the way down here. Oops, something went wrong. I have 98% wins for Cavaliers. That makes no kind of sense. I have 111% wins for San Antonio, 109 for Golden State, 72 for Magic, and 106% for OKC. What went wrong? Who could tell me what went wrong? Why am I getting these weird numbers here? Who can tell me what went wrong? You're going to have to figure this out for your lab too, which is why I'm showing it to you now so no one's confused with what's going on. Does anyone know, and does anyone want to take a guess at what possibly could have went wrong here of why these percentages I'm getting don't add up? F4. You mean F3, right? You mean F3? Okay. Yep. So that is actually very good. So let's take a look at why that happens. Yes, absolute function. So I see we have a Excel guru in here already. That is actually correct. Right now, what we're using is we're actually using what's known as a relative function. So if I double click on Celtics, you will notice that Celtics total score is being divided by the All-Star score, right? Just think about the All-Star score being the max. That's the highest possible total number of points you can get. However, as I go down to Cavaliers, Cavaliers score is being divided by Celtics, right? San Antonio score is being divided by Cavaliers. So what I basically have here is a relative function, right? By default, Excel is thinking that I want it to divide the numbers based on the previous number, right? And that is not what I am looking for. What I'm actually trying to do is I'm trying to divide every single one of these numbers by the all-star numbers because the all-stars represent a perfect score. So how do I get this done? In order to get that done, I'm going to click on Celtics because that is the first one that I did the division for. And I'm going to change cell I3, right? Why I3? Because I3 represents the perfect score. And I'm going to press F4 on my keyboard, okay? And what that does, it will default I3 to the absolute value. So what it's going to do is it's going to take F3 and it's going to divide all of the players' total scores by F3. Watch what happens when I fill handle it now. Now these numbers make sense. Celtics, 79% because it rounds it up. 87% for San Antonio, 95, 68, and 72, okay? So the absolute function is a good way or a good formula that you want to get yourself used to or familiar with when you are trying to figure out exactly what it is that's going on inside of your spreadsheet, okay? Especially given that we were looking to divide our maximum number by all of these numbers, okay? So in your lab, you have to use the absolute function this week for some of the formulas that you're going to have to use, okay? In order to ensure that that happens, you want to make sure that you make the cell that you're looking to divide everything by an absolute function. All right. Is that clear to everyone? Does this make sense? Yes, no, maybe so. For your Mac, you have to press Control Command F4. So you have to press Control and Command on Mac. Worst case scenario, what I always tell people, Control Command, yeah. If it doesn't work, you can actually just go to the cell you want to make an absolute function and just put money sign in front of it and behind it. I'm going to share this spreadsheet with you guys anyway, so you'll be able to see exactly what it is that I did. But yeah, the money signs don't work, but the command control works too. Now let's do something a little bit more